can't hear you. I can't hear you.
Able to hear me now.
That I can hear.
There we go. There we go.
Yes.
Sorry for the technical glitches. I just wrapped up from work, so the settings of my computer changed around. But to everyone who's joining,
It's okay.
everyone who's joining us, welcome to yet another live for this week. It's the second one we're doing this week. With Sandman Sports, obviously, we're in the law room. Before I introduce our guest for today marks a very important day on the calendar, and that is the month of August. We celebrate Women's Day in the month of August, so reopening of the month, obviously with a woman as our guest. If you're joining us, don't forget to like and subscribe on our YouTube channel, follow on Facebook, follow on Instagram. We are across all social media platforms, so you can follow us there, like us there, add us as your friend. We probably will be your best friend for the next few months. But of course, we have the beautiful and lovely Oarabile Diphoko, who is an award-winning sports presenter and journalist, podcaster, YouTuber also in there. Welcome. Thank you for your time. We do appreciate you joining us this evening.
Oh my word. Thank you so much. What an introduction. I really hope my Wi-Fi is good. I'm really looking forward to this conversation we're about to have. Man, that introduction was everything and a little bit more. Thank you so much for the invite. Thank you for having me and thank you for starting the month of August. What a big month we're about to have. And for you guys to think of me as the very first guest, honestly, I'm really, really humbled.
It's such an honor having you. I know I've sort of followed your journey from I think the time of COVID, the year 2020. I think we may have worked together online for G Sport at some point between now and yeah. But of course, I want to start off with how I sort of discovered you. Just my experience from the discovery of you, and that was of course on Instagram and on YouTube as you're doing a host of lives centered around the F1. But I mean, I know from the research that I've done, I know that was at the beginning of your journey in your career. I think there was a mosquito, a radio mosquito that bit you first. Tell us about that.
That is funny. You know what? That was actually probably the rebirth. When you say this is probably where you got to know me, that was me actually reinventing myself because I went to tax and the radio bug actually got me there when I was studying. So walked past the studios, they were looking for people to apply, and I think a lot of us media people won't admit it, but we like hearing the sound of our voices, or we like being a big deal a little bit. So I wanted to be on radio. I thought it was, something that would be really, really cool. It had nothing to do with what I was studying. I mean, I was studying law at the time. So it was completely off the mark, something really unplanned. And Lord knows I fell in love. So I was at Tax FM for about 4 years. Obviously, that is community radio. And then COVID happened. And at the time, I was actually trying to get my way into Supersport. So I had my interview, everything went well, and then COVID hit, and then it was just a disaster. And I think a lot of us, a lot of the people that I was working with on that particular podcast, we all got bored at home. And with the foundation that we had built, the friendship that we had, we were like, guys, listen, we love the sport, why not interact every week? This is the best way to possibly interact with other people outside of our families because we were going crazy at home. So it started off being on an online platform such as this one, having the conversations as we were. There were actually two different podcasts. One was called The Apex, which was Formula One, and the other one was called Touchline, which was actually football. So we managed to do both of them. And then obviously when the gates and doors started opening up a little bit more, we started making it a little bit more visual, started going to different places, trying to get everybody together and continue the conversation, obviously now on a more personal and interactive level. Unfortunately, as I said, with the doors and everything else opening up, lives had to be lived. So a lot of us ended up going back to our regular lives or finding something else. But I will not take for granted what we did with those two podcasts. The gentleman that I had on there, I had Kito Khokong, I had Sandile, I had Kopano. Man, so many beautiful people that I met along the way. Vince as well. So I appreciate those people because without them, I don't think you would have seen any of those lives. To be honest, technology is not my thing. Like even now, I sat down, my partner set up everything. She's like, okay, come sit here. Let me see the lights. Let me. I wouldn't have been able to. That's not my thing. Give me radio and I will speak.
A superstar in your own right. I firmly believe that. But before I move on to all the superstardom that you've obviously achieved, I just want to touch on sort of that shift from what you were actually studying to essentially what you have now become, and just the decision that you essentially made. How did that come about? You're moving from law, and then suddenly there's a reminder that this is something that I have to put this passion, something that I'm intensely passionate about. How do I awaken that spirit? How did you essentially awaken that spirit?
Oh, that's a tough one. And I thought that the tough questions are going to come later. To be honest, I don't think it was a choice. I don't think I ever thought, I'm going to do this in spite of that. Because, I mean, weirdly enough, I have a 9 to 5 and I kind of use my law degree as well. So for 7 days a week, I'm between two different, entirely different worlds. But I still use my law degree to some extent. But I guess with radio, my parents were very supportive. I didn't think that would happen. One, I got to tax. I was first studying psychology. Halfway through, I switched to law. Now I'm trying to do radio. Like, I think my parents thought I was probably confused. But also, in that, I was still passing at school. So I wasn't trying to fully focus on the one thing and forget what got me there in the first place. I mean, without my LLB, I wouldn't have had tax FM. So I need to balance the two. If I fail, I can't be in the radio station. So I needed to think of it in that way. But my mother was truly supportive. My dad also behind the shadows. He would listen to all my awful shows when I first started out. And he didn't really tell me, but like he tells me now, he's like, sure, you were so bad at tax FM. But I don't want to tell you because you're my daughter and I love you. But there were certain days where you learn along the way because you're not always perfect. And for me, it wasn't really a decision because, in all honesty, I think I still use both in a sense. It's still a really big part of my life. And I'm also very grateful, like I said, to my parents. Without the support, I probably along the way would have dropped out.
What is your 9 to 5?
My 9 to 5, I am a PA to an ambassador. Very far from radio.
Now, that is quite far, but I mean, it sort of paves the way for your 9 to 5 and vice versa. There's a lot of interaction that goes into that job, doesn't it?
Absolutely. You need to have context as you would in media. If you don't know the right people to call, you're never going to get the right answers. And also, the content that I've made in media, I use now for international relations. There's a lot of parts that, intertwine along the way. Me knowing Zizi Koto is kind of helpful because if I need some help in the ANC, well, in the new parties now. I don't even know what to call our democracy. I don't even know what to call our government now. But it helps along the way. You know who to call, you know who to text, you know who to email. And you'd be very surprised what an email can still do for you in the era that we still live in now.
A change of path you certainly did have quite early, I'd like to believe, in your career. We are chatting to Miss Oarabile Diphoko, who is an award-winning sports presenter, currently at Kaya 959, I think is the frequency.
I am 959.
The
Most people don't get
sports
right. Be branding.
sports presenter, sports journalist, award winner, an LLB graduate, and international relations in Dondo, and you just
Clash.
there's slashes everywhere. There's slashes everywhere. But I want to just talk to you about the next thing that happened to you, which is your job. Now
Mm,
with Kaya, which sees us sort of under the same umbrella, because I work for a company that's a sister to yours at the moment. But
is this medium?
which is crazy. But you now shifted from Tux FM to online, where the world was sort of shut down, and you tried to keep that passion going. And then you scored this massive gig on a platform that is massive. Talk about that moment you got that phone call.
Mm. You know what happened with that? In my mind, I thought they like forgot and I didn't get it. And because it took so long for them to get back to me. I remember when the post first went out on social media platforms, Instagram, Twitter. I actually had my friend Zanele Potelo from 5FM. She sent me a DM and says, "Hey girl, Kaya's looking for a person, apply." And I remember I procrastinated. I was so scared. I was really scared. But I think looking back on it now, I was scared because I knew it was mine. It sounds so egotistic to say that, but my fear stemmed from the fact that I knew it was mine and it was my time. And more than anything, I was more scared of it being my time because I thought I wasn't ready. You work so hard to get into these spaces and places where you are able to live out your dreams. And when they finally come, I had that fear and I was like, whew. I said in my demo literally the last day of submissions. I think I recorded it 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times, but I knew in my gut and my soul that that was my job. And when 2 weeks passed and nothing was, said, I was like, oh no, my cockiness finally got the best of me. I didn't get it. This is not for me, you know. And literally the day I said it's not for me, 2 hours later, 2 hours later, I got a call from then editor in chief, Ngabakazi. She was like, listen, it's been such a chaotic time because it was towards the end of the year. I mean, end of November, beginning December, busy times, emails are streaming in. I completely forgot to call you, but listen, you got the job. When are you free? We need you here at Kaya for us to have a conversation.
That's a crazy thing. A thing we call imposter syndrome. But at the same time, the cockiness that's there, it, it's sort of it's sort of defined as a fear of success. What do you think it is that is so scary about success?
I mean, success in any field comes with a lot of pressure, comes with a lot of fear. But I guess in our field, especially in media and as a woman, it's a lot more because you don't get to see a lot of us. Um, Now in recent times, oh my God, listen, we are literally, I think, the standard that most South Africans now want to reach, where women in sport have now set the bar high. But coming in when I was still at Taxi Fam, I didn't know anybody else that was doing what I was doing. I didn't know anybody else that was hosting an entire sports show on a community platform. So it was kind of hard to stay in touch with reality as it was because it was just in my head it was just my reality. There was nobody else doing it. I didn't have a lot of contact with other people that I can have this conversation with that we're having right now. So The imposter syndrome literally comes from the fact that you don't see people that look like you, sound like you, doing what you want to do, or even the ideas that you have. Nobody is affirming it. Even if when you speak to people about it, more people are actually trying to get you off of it. Dude, you're studying law. Why would you want to do radio? Like, how does that work? So a lot of it came from that, but also a lot of it was also, what if I am great? What happens then? Because you can't imagine that. Like, there's a whole new world after imagining the actual success. And what you think is success when you start out slowly builds into something else, and then you grow, and then your aspirations become bigger and bigger. And next thing, you're trying to follow Julia Stewart to the UK. So you become a bit creepyish in your aspirations. But I think it stems from that belief of, there are not many people that are doing what I'm doing.
It is easier to accept, and it is more comfortable to accept that you failed than to actually work it and build and be
Mm,
someone else can see, and essentially blaze the trail for everyone who comes after us. We do have
yeah.
a job as journalists, constantly put under pressure, especially
Mm,
when we're women behind the mic talking about something that is male dominated. Unfortunately, it is still a conversation
yeah, yeah.
we are having till today. It is a reality. Moko asks, recently there has been a big emphasis on the importance of unearthing untold stories, all stories that is, and fact checking. What is your take on that, being a woman in sports yourself?
I'm glad that question came today, because I'm pretty sure anybody that has been on social media has been seeing G Sports celebrating 18 years. You know what a milestone that is? I don't think people understand the magnitude of what they have done and how they have continued to build and put girls on a platform that nobody thought they ever deserved to be on. Never mind the doors they kept opening for us. So to be in a position where I see other women getting celebrated, and also be in a position to watch where I started coming, obviously looking back at my journey, and how many other people are behind me doing the exact same thing. I grew up also just thinking, oh, it was just the likes of Carol Shabalala. But now we're within touching distance of Omutidi Simohono, and you get to see them going to the likes of Paris, going to watch the Springboks. Right now, I'm following Vusiwe Ngobo, who's in, at the Olympics right now. She had packed me in her bag. But there's been so many opportunities and so many women that I have interacted with. And just the love is there, and being a part of it, because that's another thing that I think a lot of people underestimate. The sisterhood that we all have has propelled a lot of us into the avenues and places that we find ourselves. So to be a part of it is absolutely amazing. And also to have platforms such as the one we're having right now, where people can log in and find out about someone's story. We didn't have these opportunities before. Nobody knew what you were doing. You pop up one day, you're doing a podcast, the next thing you're on Kaya. Where's the in between? Where are the no's? Where are the declines? Where's the heartache? Where's the heartbreak? Where's the story? And for us to be right in the middle of that and being able to tell those stories, I would not swap that for anything in the world. I would not.
It's a nice job that we have, to get to do exactly that, to tell the stories that aren't told, to tell the stories that we once at some point did not have access to. The unfortunate part,
Mm.
I hate to be the cynical one to constantly bring it up, but it is a reality. But there is a part that where we still don't have access to small statistics, like who scored this try at what time versus um, profiles of players and athletes, be it football, cricket, rugby, or athletics, or javelin, or I mean, we see females
Yeah.
coming out of the cracks of nowhere in the Olympics right now. Youngsters completely succeeding and just blazing through the Tokyo Olympics, be it in South Africa, Africa or the world.
Mm.
And I think our job has now become less about little bit more tougher to bring these stories to the fore. And I think we should be thankful for the jobs that we have, but also stress a little bit with this job. Oarabile Diphoko is chatting with us, sports presenter, award-winning sports presenter, radio sports presenter, and sports journalist. She won the G Sport Awards award for Best Sports Presenter. It's a big award to have won.
Finalist. I was
Um,
finalist.
you're a finalist. Yes, you were a finalist. You were a finalist.
Yeah.
Somebody else. It slips my memory who won that now, but yes, you were a finalist. But a massive achievement that is in itself.
Sorry, I missed that.
I said that is being a finalist for best sports journalist or sports presenter is a massive achievement in itself, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, it was. I remember when I was getting the nominations last year, and it's very weird that it's actually happening now as well, where you can nominate, the women in. I was the finalist in Women in Radio, and when the process was happening, and I kept getting these notifications to say you've been nominated. I was really touched because one, I worked for G Sport before, so I knew the magnitude of being nominated, let alone being a finalist. So I know the amount of hard work that goes into making sure the nominations are vetted and also getting to making sure that you have three finalists. So that alone was such a massive milestone in my career. The validation I got on just being nominated. And then we got the phone calls of you're a finalist. A finalist is three people, guys. Three people. And do you know how many radio stations they are and how many women in radio there are? And then not just that, to see who else was in the category. I mean, Rachel Makura has had won that award three times prior to when she won it last year as well. Looking at Tolagele from EWN as so just to see the women I was nominated and a finalist alongside, I was like, I've made it. This is where the dream was when I started. This is where I want to be recognized and where my name should be named. And that for me was validation. The awards happened, Rachel won, but I was like, I can do this. Like I am doing this. And that for me was enough to I didn't care about the win at first. I won't lie. I was a bit touched about that. But I got over it after a little while. But then I went back to say, if I can get to this position just doing this, because unfortunately, I'm very limited in my capacity at Kaya as a weekend sports presenter, where we only get bulletins. There's not enough time for sport. There is no show for sport. So in that moment, I remember in my defeat as it was, in the days where I was feeling very sad and feeling sorry for myself, I thought about how can I now go get that award? How can I be better than what I've been? And that inspired a whole new platform because since then, what I've decided is every single Saturday I have female oriented bulletins, and then literally in my last bulletin I have a 5 minute interview because that's all I get for sport. I was like, how can I utilize 5 minutes? So I have women in sport, give them a call, we talk about sport or whatever it is that's happening at the time. I've been running a feature on the Springboks, obviously with their rugby championship coming up as well, with their games against Portugal, game against Ireland, ran that feature. But also now looking at the fact that we're going to Olympics. So Saturday I have another one lined up. We're going to be talking about the Olympics. We're going to be talking about hopefully Tatiana Smith making history, which I believe she will. Yes, I believe she will. So just to be able to talk about things like that, and finally we have an Olympics, I don't know, ceremony tournament where we have a 50-50 split. We were talking about statistics not so long ago, and now we have women and men who are equally competing at the Olympics. So that alone is also just a stepping in the right direction. Looking at the next ones, the new sporting codes that will be introduced. I can't wait to see squash being played at the Olympics. So there's progress. Little to none, but we're getting there. But yes, I was a G Sport finalist, and the award, actually, the award for Radio Presenter of the Year came from Footballing Girls and Gauteng Sports. So that was also just after the bummer of not winning G Sport, I was lifted again with that. And to win it, I've been on such an oh, it's been amazing. I can't even lie. The last 9 months or so of my life have been incredible.
I think I would have been posting a little bit for like 3 or 4 days afterwards, and added immediately to my CV, like, award winning.
Yeah,
Of
yeah,
course. That's a nice addition to add to one's
yeah.
profile. But I mean, I like the fact that you touched on the Olympics now, which is there's two finals that we're going to be watching in about an hour or so, 2 hours time. We saw Tatiana securing a gold medal earlier this week. We hope to see her secure another gold medal, hopefully breaking her old record as well that she set, Tokyo Games. She needs, she's hoping to secure her old crown. It's crazy to see, but it's also brilliant at the same time. We seeing her counterpart, her compatriot rather, joining her. Her name escapes me now. Who finished third, I think, in that semi-final. I mean, it is a great time for women's sports, um,
Mm.
especially seeing that we're bringing in the month of August, Women's Month that is. But a crazy thing unearthed today. A story about an Algerian boxer who has now she's now under the microscope, much
Mm.
like Caster Semenya under the same microscope, for high levels of testosterone.
Mm.
It's a my bearings escape me now, but Algeria, I believe, is in Africa. I think, I believe, but I mean, it's another story. It's another story of an African woman being questioned about her authenticity as a woman in a boxing ring this time, overpowering and telling, lovely.
Mm.
What are your thoughts just on stories like this that come out in a very important time for athletes who don't get the exposure that they would like to get, like the sport of boxing, the
Mm.
biggest platform and the only big platform that they get.
Mm. That's true. And when they do get a little bit of, airtime, it's always within the negativity of having to question people's biology, question people's genes, and force them into corners and boxes that you want to see them in. The standards will always, for some odd reason, always baffle me. And I don't know why I get so disappointed by it, but it happens every single time where it's always going to be a woman that is questioned about her looks, her genes, things she has no control over. Just by the way, you're talking about that particular case, and I'm thinking back to Caster's one. Till this day, Caster Semenya is still fighting in a court somewhere, fighting to just do what she loves and what she's good at. And speaking of Caster, I know she will actually be taking part. I think historical first. She's probably run. I think she's running the Spa Women's Race this coming Saturday, the 10 kilometer. And I was pleasantly surprised to see that. But that's what we're doing now. We're pushing our athletes to be doing, finding other ways of being able to be good and be who they are. And having conversations such as this one is tough because how do you answer, this is who I am? Like, what can you possibly say to defend yourself? And also, why is it always the ones that are so good at what they do that always have to be questioned? Because you can't just be good. It's because you have this. It's because if you weren't like this, you wouldn't be as good. And we always want to challenge that. And we haven't moved far from that conversation. Castle's been fighting in, this court case for years now, and for another one to pop up now. We've had similar instances in tennis as well, where people randomly got tested because they can't be that good. Why? Why is it so difficult to believe that she is that good? And unfortunately, it's a very sad conversation to have, but the narrative will always be women can't be that good without an aid of some sort. Unfortunately, if you're a man and you're in the same situation, I don't know that we'll be having this conversation. I don't know if it will get the spotlight that she got. because of her genes and her biology.
I think doping is also a very hectic topic to have a conversation. We can drag and have a long conversation on that alone. But I'm going to bring in my colleague and friend, Usbusiso Nowo, to join us in this chat. We had a chance now to get your thoughts on other issues. Um, Thank you, Sbu, for joining us in this conversation. We are chatting to Oarabile Diphoko, who is a sports presenter, award G Sport finalist for the Sports Presenter Award. She's also a journalist, a podcaster. I'm sure there's more that you aspire to add to that CV. If you just don't forget to like, subscribe to our YouTube channel at Seven Man Sports. You can follow us across all social media platforms. We are live currently on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. You can follow this entire conversation and previous conversations we've had on this show. We had a conversation earlier this week. It escapes me now with one of the basketball, South African basketball player, and Mr. Sipo. You can check that conversation out on those platforms. So thank you for joining us. I know you probably you have a thinking face on you. There's a lot that you'd like to either add or converse with Mr.
Man,
Diphoko on.
you say I have my thinking face on. I think one of the biggest questions I could ask or Ms. Diboko here is, how do you feel at the fact that you are in a media space where women like yourself, your Carols, your Julia Stewarts are currently not only inspiring not only young girls but also young men like myself are also trying to get into the space of media broadcast. No, like you have a smile there, and like honestly, I look at the likes of Uchida Stewart, who's able to be here in SA with Super Sports. She's able to go to be with Sky overseas and also uh, go to NBC or CBS in America, go to India with Star Sports, and actually be she's everywhere right now. It's not only where they are in Africa. We can call them international sports broadcasters. How do you feel at the fact that they're inspiring not only young women but also doing the same for young men and young some? You know what, like myself, how can I be like a Judah Stewart? You know, how do you feel at that the women have come that far in this space, basically?
I mean, I feel like it's about time. Thank you for joining and coming on. Ra leboga. We
Yeah.
you are more than welcome. But it's a very weird feeling because you get men that also now are hitting you up. They're like, "Hey, listen, I just wanted to bounce off
Mm,
ideas with you,"
mm,
and you're like, "Little me." You want to talk to me, so we still get inspired by our fellow colleagues as well, even as a man. So to think that the likes of what Carol are inspiring men, where a lot of the time it would have been a man in Carol's seat, also lets you
exactly.
know somewhere along the lines the shift has, the focus has shifted. Women are now taking center stage and we are now being taken seriously. But also, as much as that is happening, I think a lot of women can still admit that they kind of feel the need to work twice as hard to even get a little bit of that recognition. So, as much as it's happening and it's opening up doors, and yes, we love having our colleagues, especially the men on our side, also, because to be honest, it's a collective effort. Um, your talent alone doesn't only get you through. We have each other. Without each other, a lot of the time, we have
Yeah.
no information. So working together, I think a lot of people underestimate how many doors can open for both of us. I mean, I'm pretty sure if Julia could take us with, we would have been there. But fine, we're making our way there. We're getting there. But it's very humbling to hear you say, you look at them and you want to be where they are as well. But yeah, it's their time now, and sometimes we just need to let people shine for a little bit, because we don't know how hard they've had to work and how many no's they've also had to collect along the way in the build up to where they are now. We don't know how many times she sat on her couch crying herself to sleep because somebody said
Yeah.
no. He had said, if you don't do this for me, you won't get that job. I'm not going to act like these things don't happen. But it is her time. And for us to see ourselves, somebody who looks like us, somebody we know we can feel, touch, and go to her house, getting to the UK, we know it's absolutely possible. It's just a matter of, when is it your turn?
I mean, you spoke about something in regards to experiences. I mean, so for me, for example, I would have said I would relate to the likes of Robert's upbringing, blah, blah, blah. But also, going back to my question, I could also say I wouldn't have experienced the whole, like what Carol experienced as a woman, right? But I feel like the experiences of the starts, basically, of, still trying to break through into the industry. You also had that where you still had people questioning, will you be able to do the job? Will you be able to step up to the plates? Even when you went to Ikai FM, not everyone was your biggest fan, and you had to kind of convince them. And you mentioned something about you knew the job was yours. The fact that you had the mental toughness in you, where you knew your own limits, your own abilities. Was that tough, basically, going into a KFM and knowing what you had ups within the faction?
Mm, it was, and also it didn't help at the fact that the time I got to Kaya was a time where the turmoil started for them as a station. So to go in and join people that are defending themselves in the streets now,
Yeah.
and outsiders coming in, so it was a bit difficult. Funny enough, I remember the day I went to go have my interview was the very same day that just let go of Unati. So I was
Mm.
like, are they really give me the time of day, because they're trying to sort out a mess, a fiasco. I wasn't even sure that the interview was going to happen in the first place, because when I got there, people were trying to put out fires. So to walk into a station that is already defending itself in the media, never mind the people inside, because now they don't know what's happening either. Now they're letting outsiders in. What is happening? So it was a little bit of turmoil. But also, I think another thing that helped me was going into Kaya, um, literally in December. They call it the downtime in radio. So not a lot of the familiar faces are there doing the regular shows. So I got to work with people who, in a sense, were like me, because if you're not a regular, you're also just coming in to fill a spot and make sure that the show must go on even without the regular person. So it was such a good time for me to actually have started. I wouldn't have any other way, because I don't know how I would have felt if I started like in April, where it's radio season and everybody's now listening in, trying to scrutinize, trying to see who's this person, are they good enough, are they worthy, and also now compare you to somebody else they just heard a week before. And the one before you probably had years of experience and they'd known him, and now you are trying to break into this market. So it was kind of hard, but going into it with the whole thing of knowing that this was mine from the start, I went in there for me. So I wasn't trying to ruffle any feathers. I wasn't trying to also be friends with anybody. I had a job to do. I had a name to create for myself. I wanted this thing for so long, and I don't think anybody would have stood in my way in that aspect of, I know what I'm here for and I know how I got here and I'm trying to keep this job. So it was scary, man. It was hard, but it was such an excitement. It was such a thrill. It was such a rush. I remember my first show. I was so nervous, but I do remember my first show. I listened to that bulletin, the very first one. I listened to it quite a lot, because it also is just a reminder of, this was you stepping in. And then I compare it to, maybe the one I did last week, and I'm saying, you've really grown, you've stepped up, there's more information, and now you are also touching on sports that not a lot of people know. One thing about me is that I like pushing boundaries. When you
Yeah.
say to me 3 minutes, I will make sure that it will be 3 minutes 10 seconds. I need to have that. So I'm always constantly pushing boundaries, trying to see how far I can push my sports. So that's another thing also that I'm so proud of, especially with my attire, where I love doing sports that nobody cares about. I don't care. We're going to it's my time. I will shine, and I love that. I love being able to challenge the narrative a little bit.
I can share that sentiment with you. Because I do want to listen to people, and I think a lot of maybe no one's actually listening. Maybe I can do whatever I want. I remember there's this once, and somebody has pointed it out to me. It's a dear friend and colleague of mine. Where I just decided it's Wednesday, it's Women's Crush Wednesday. I'm only going to push women's sports.
Hmm.
Who's gonna say what?
Hmm.
And I was doing a full in, and I did exactly that. And I think I did it on the weekend as well, where I just said, we're just pushing on it was a big sporting weekend. I think the Springboks or the Proteas were playing that weekend, the men's Proteas. And I decided to lead with only women's sports, despite the massive competitions happening on the men's side. And he said to me, he's like, you're crazy. That's what you
Mm.
are. It's fine. It's a massive responsibility that we do have. Spooks, you've come back, and I think you've missed a lot. In
No,
what
now I was watching on Instagram. Actually, I got to continue the conversation. Well, continue listen to almost Diphoko here speak, and it was interesting what she said. And because I remember being part of a um, a conference back in 20, I think it was 2018, worldwide. That basically all not athletes, but people who are in sports who are in high positions around the world came in. They started talking about the way forward for African sports and how can we help African sports. And they had a panel full of women who have achieved a lot in the world of sports. And one of the conversation was, what can we do to push women's sports forward? And one of the ladies, I think she was Jamaican, if I'm not mistaken, she had said, can we get to a place where we don't say women's sports, where we just classify it as an outsider? Can we just say sports? Can we also be bracketed as amongst the men? Because now we feel you guys make it seem as if we are inferior to everyone. Can we just say sports instead of, what are your thoughts about such conversations where, like Fighter just said right now, when her and I used to be parts of W Radio, we had women's sports on Wednesday. Can you do you think we could one day get to a place where we just say sports and then just start the conversation of actually just talking about women without people questioning why we only speak about women when we say sports, where people just think when they say sports we just mean men only.
Mm. Yeah, that's a tough one. I mean, the fact that we keep having to reiterate women's sports, the fact that we have to keep saying that it's an all-female bulletin is
Yeah.
already, it really is a problem. But also another thing that you learn also in radio is that people have selective hearing. So they choose to
Mm.
hear what they want to hear. And that also for me is the reason why half the time I keep saying women's sport, because I need it to stick in their head. As much as we want to get to a place where we shouldn't have to. But right now,
Yeah.
unfortunately, we're where we have to remind them that it's women's sport. And that's what makes it a little bit better for me as to when or why I say it, because I'm also creating a name for myself. And I want to be associated with the title of she was the one that always gave women her flowers. She was the one that always brought up a new name or a new woman that I didn't know anything about. And that's also why I'm placing it strategically. For me, it's strategy, because in this industry, creating a name or want to be known for what is that I want to leave that legacy of I always gave the platform to people like me, for making sure that sports like squash, like I mentioned, people are going to hear about it. People don't want to know what is a squash. There's this a segment on another lady show that we have on Kaya. Her show is Saturday between 3 and 6, Caroline Franks, where we do this thing called Sports for Dummies. So I kind of go into, the Springboks starting or the rugby, or whatever it may be. But I go ahead and explain what Run 15 is, because some people don't know. But also, people remember what they hear. People don't forget what you say to them. And that's why I keep emphasizing women in sport. But oh, what a glorious day it would be for us not to ever say, in this bulletin, it's just female oriented. Oh, it would be a glorious day.
Said the women's football, but you can't just say for like and people know that okay, we can book you're talking about. I enjoyed the fact that we had women for sponsoring the women proteas. And when you said
Mm.
momentum proteas, you know it was the woman and it was
You
the
don't
men's
know.
proteas. I enjoyed that. That was a glorious time. We better than you. We have sponsors, you don't. But I mean, there's a great question here in the comments. It says, just to take it back a bit, why is it so hard to open about those things that happen, especially in this space? And I think that is alluding to what we had been speaking about earlier when we mentioned Julia Stewart and and sort of the things that are happening in the background as to how women are getting their positions, and that is a conversation. Also, accusations that people have, especially our male counterparts, have these accusations as to how certain females get certain positions. Just your thoughts on those things. I know it is a difficult conversation to have, but it's one that must be had.
Yeah, it must. It must. It's gonna. I've been privileged enough not to have been in a position where I've had to think about my conscience and have compromised certain morals that I might have to put aside because I want a job. I have been so fortunate. I've never been backed into a corner like that. But I think also maybe my law background plays a role in that, because you will not push me into weird things. We're not doing that. So, but other people aren't like me. Some people don't have the luxury to say no, or don't have the willpower to be able to say no and stand firm in their decisions. And we see it on a very big scale. Ria Ledwaba spoke out the other day about things she did not like, or things that were happening. And then she, with things that are happening, where she got blamed, and then things were retracted after that. So if a public figure such as Miss Ria Ledwaba speaks out against our male counterparts and certain organizations or big names, we've seen what happens. You'll always be stigmatized. And also now in South Africa, you're always guilty. It doesn't matter what you did, doesn't matter what you said or didn't say. In public eye, you're guilty. And the same way social media has the power to give, it also has the power to take. So immediately from there, you are stigmatized. You're pushed into a corner. You're backing out of what generally makes you money or gives you joy. It's very hard, I guess, for a lot of women, or a lot of people, really, because I mean, Spusiso also spoke about men who are also idolizing these women, want to be in these spaces. We also don't know the pressures that men go through. I'm pretty sure there is. I'm quite sure, as human beings in every sphere of our life, there's pressure for anything. So let us also not downplay what they go through. But a lot of the times, if you speak out as a woman, it usually doesn't end well for you, even if it turns out you are the victim.
Yeah. I mean, you spoke about Miss Really Dwaba right now, and I think it was back in 2028, no, I think 2022, where she ran for office, South Presence. And you look at the hierarchy within our sporting associations in South Africa, whether it's rugby, cricket, football, or whatever sports, we are here to have a woman in a high position, or or as a minister, whether it is provincial or national. And I think one of the conversations that was had in one of the radio stations during the whole minister debacle, where they were still trying to figure out what to do. One of the conversations was, why can't we have a woman be our Minister of Sports and Recreation? Let's see the change that we might have. Or why can't we have like the likes of Miss Really Dwaba, I'll mention right now. The fact that she lost the elections to Mr. Danny Jordan, like why couldn't Mr. Danny Jordan let Miss Ria take over after, because he's been there since the early 2010s possibly, and he's still there right now. You know, when can we get to a stage where we can give women an opportunity also within, I want to talk about our space, which is sports. Why can't we give women an opportunity in this space? Because all Ms. Moko here spoke about space. Why can't we give women in this space an opportunity to show what they have and what some of the changes that they can also bring within the space of sports and recreation? As also, I'm asking this as a woman who is currently within politics right now. I know you're not a politician yourself, but you are in there amongst
Woo,
the top
whoever that
dogs.
you bad, they want you badly.
Yeah,
Um, I think there are different levels to that. It also
yeah,
just depends, I guess, on us, how far we want to go, how far we want
yeah,
to see ourselves, the rooms that we're trying to knock on, the doors that we're trying to open. I mean, slowly but surely, we are getting women in positions where you see a lot of change. I was watching your episode last week where Ulona was speaking about Cecilia and how she says, if you want something done properly, send a woman. And we saw that with the Netball World Cup. I mean, it was one of the best stage tournaments I have ever seen. And for it to be completely female, we see ourselves moving in those spaces, but how far do we want to go is entirely up to us as well. Personally, I don't want to be involved in the politics. I like the fun of it. I want to be on the ground. I want to get the story. I don't want to be the one to have to set the rules on how you get the story. So I guess also it's just a personal preference. But looking at what you just said now with the likes of Mr. Realudaba who ran in 2022, it was so funny because at the time it was happening, it was actually on air. So I was giving the results as they were happening. And I remember I was like, yo, they just won yet again. And the disappointment in the tweets that I got after, like, no, not again. I was just like, but this is where we're at. Because if we're not supporting each other as women, also, because how many other people are in that organization that didn't vote for Rhea as a woman, as women? Because you look at the votes, you look at the people that were there, how many actually did vote for her as well? When we don't believe in our fellow sisters, it becomes a problem. And the men generally get away and take the baton and run with it. But we need to start supporting each other in those aspects of, if somebody we see potential and we see them having this passion and wanting to do this, let us celebrate them and propel them forward in any way we can. But for us to get to that stage, I feel, and it's a very sad thing to say, I feel like we still are a long way from that. The conversation that needed to be had as to why we can't have a sports minister that's a woman, that alone is also sad. Because I don't know what the criteria is as to how these ministers were getting these positions in the first place. Hoy a woman also, let's see what she can do, because it seems like you're hoying anybody that wants a job at this particular time. You can't go wrong. Hoy a woman, and then let's see how that goes. But we are such a long way from women having that kind of position and that kind of power. But nothing is impossible. And if we just sit on our hands and say it will never happen, then it really will never happen. And also, what do we have to lose? It's fun along the way. We get to talk about sport. We get to be involved in the sport, from start to finish. Let's try. Let's try. But like I said, on a personal note, nah, that's not for me. I want to be at the Olympics on the ground, getting the story.
yeah. I mean, it's interesting. We just came went into politics as a journalist yourself, also, by the way. We've seen also what's your opinion on athletes having a political opinion also, because we've seen the likes of the late AKA, who is a mega superstar, when he had his opinion on who to vote for back in, I think it was 2019. There was a whole lot of backlash on him that fell on him, the fact that he should just stay an artist and not mixed with politics. But we see that in America, where I think where it's embraced, I would say, as an athlete, or as an artist, or whatever field which is in art and culture. Whenever they go into the political field, they kind of embrace, they kind of on some, we welcome your opinion. Why is it that in South Africa, whenever we have our superstars, like the site, like for example, let me say Uteko Modise, if Uteko Modise had to come out and be on some, let's vote for the NFP, for example, we would then have something to say negative about Uteko then. Like, what's
Mm.
your opinion on that, on mixing sports and politics?
It's funny. I mean, just just after AFCON, when the boys came back, and then there was the EFF versus ANC, and I was like,
Mm,
well, what this tricky part about being who you are and having an opinion. I think as South Africans, we want to dehumanize people, and I think that's something that we get wrong quite often because we want to take away from who you are. You're first human. Let's start there. You're
yeah,
first. You're first before your career or anything. You're allowed to have an opinion. And unfortunately,
mm,
because now you play soccer, we feel the need that you can't have a political opinion. So that's where our first mistake is, where we feel that our athletes are just athletes. And also, I think they are also in the mindset of, even if I were to speak my mind, they're thinking about their livelihoods. Sponsorship gets taken away because now you're associating yourself with a political party that unfortunately Nike or Adidas don't see themselves in. So it's a very tricky situation to be in because as an athlete, if you're going to speak out, just know that you might actually lose a lot more than what you're going to gain by what you're going to say. But also, we shouldn't have to instill that kind of fear. We're very
yeah,
backward thinking in that, to say that we take away the sport and the politics. Unfortunately, those two things will always coexist. And as athletes, you need to know where to line, what is important to you, because ultimately you need to remain true to who you are. You need to live with whatever
yeah,
comes next, whatever comment you put out there, whatever you tweet, whatever you write, whatever you post. The consequences will be there. But are you okay with that? Can you sleep at night knowing I spoke my mind and I'm okay with that, regardless of what might happen from there?
Very, very interesting. Especially during really, really tough time in the world. We saw the likes of Usman Khawaja, Australia's cricketer, and one of our own playing the under 19 World Cup. One thing from East and the other um, ahead of those are the critical things that they had. And it's always a very important question. And you raising a very important point, saying that these issues need to come to the surface, and that these people have their own beliefs, these athletes, and they are human first. Um, it's almost time for us to wrap up. I know we can carry on and on and on, but it's
Yeah.
always the case. Every time we have a live, it feels like 1 hour is just not enough. But I mean, Mr. Pogo, thank you so much for joining us. Before I let you go, you've come this far in your sports journey and your broadcasting career. I mean, what's the next thing for you?
Sure. I don't know. I really don't. But all I know is that I'm ready for the next step. I'm ready for a big show. I'm ready for a drive. I'm ready for a breakfast show. Um, I'm ready for that. I think I got into radio wanting to be a main anchor on a very big show, and hopefully God hears me, and He blesses me with all of that. I think another thing that I've always, stated in my career is that one day, hopefully this year, I want to win a G Sport award. I'm very intentional about that. I'm very intentional about I wanting that. I'm very intentional also about being nominated for a radio award. I don't want to win it as yet. I want to enter. I want to know what it's like so I can draw more inspiration. For some odd reason, whenever I get a no, it's like you propelled me even more. Now I'm going for it. So I want to taste radio awards at first. I mean, if I win, even better. But I want to be along those lines, especially in my broadcasting career. Hopefully, also get into more TV. I've been doing a lot of features since last year, May. Also featured on morning show ETV, done racing course with Obi Knows. So I want to feature a little bit more. I've done the ACBC Jonas podcast. So a little bit more TV as well. But radio will always be my first love, man. Until I land and make sure I'm going to keep going.
It's a path that for the rest of our life. And who knows, and then perhaps if you share the message, but for all this of your bright future, I see all those things happen. But I think the first step is being a teacher or it's quite clear. We're in that season, so we need to that dominate and throw your name in the hat. I think we get to the time of joining us, just your mind and sharing your thoughts. So many good things that happen in the world. And you continue to carry the message forward for the fight.
Yeah,
Thank you.
again, thank you very much from the both of us. Hey, thank you for
Oh,
being here with us, and hopefully, but next time we have you, you will have your own show like you're manifesting right now. Remember, when you manifest, the universe is
mm,
listening.
absolutely.
We
What
pull
you
this,
put
So
out
yeah,
there.
yes,
yeah,
we pull this out and we'll put it on all our social media platforms and say we told you so. But thanks again for letting us say you joined us on all the lives across our platforms on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. Thank you for joining us. You can like, subscribe on YouTube, follow us, and like and share Facebook, and do the same on Instagram. And don't forget to like to follow each one of us, Oarabile Diphoko on Instagram, Find Out Crouch, the Real Crouch, on Instagram as well as Season Mobile. Follow us there. Thanks again. We'll be back next week with a lot of more conversation on happening in sports. And yeah, have a fantastic weekend. See you then.
Good night, everybody. Thank you for having me.